Hello, everyone. You're listening to Speaking of Art School, an oral history project created to perpetuate the legacy and culture of the San Francisco Art Institute. I'm your host, Thomas Houston. Thanks for listening. My name is Thomas Houston, and I am an alumni from the San Francisco Art Institute class of 1984. And I want to give a shout out to the Art Institute and the relatively newly formed alumni support group, SFAA, without whom I would never have thought of doing this podcast project. And it's really great, and I appreciate it. And today we're speaking with Tony Labat, and I'm super excited to have a conversation with you, find out a little bit more about you, and we'll talk about many things, including the Three Turns project that's going on in Miami Beach tomorrow. And well, maybe you could just give us a little background about you and how you came to SFAI, or maybe how SFAI came to you,
Okay.
and how what you were doing as a student and how that evolved into your becoming a professor there.
Okay. Now, well, that's a two-part question.
That's a two-part question. Yeah.
Let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
Well, as I think everybody knows, but maybe not, I arrived in Miami on the Lyndon B. Johnson's freedom flights, and it was like political refugees from Havana, Cuba, and that's how I got here. And to make a long story short, somewhere in the early 70s, I had traveled to London and lived in London for a year. I had come back. I had my own business, which was, believe it or not, platform shoes.
Awesome.
Kind of like glam rock platform shoes, one of a kind, made in London.
Wow.
But then, it's kind of like going nowhere kind of thing. And I knew that art had been in me like way back since I was a kid, even in Cuba. So I went to Miami-Dade Junior College and I started taking classes there. And I started, at night because I had like a job. I was actually like, but in that night, those night classes, I guess, I had one teacher that really encouraged me or told me to like get out of there and go to the regular daytime classes. Like I was wasting my time in this kind of like, hobby thing,
Yeah.
So I did. I quit everything and I went full time during the day. And that's where the story starts, which I was one of those that was fortunate to have an amazing instructor, artist by the name of Robert Teeley. And actually, now that I live here, I'm like reconnecting with him. He's still alive, so he's amazing. And he had been in the Whitney Biennial in 74 or so, whenever that was. And there he met Howard Fried. And he came back and he was really instrumental in, I was doing things like, I brought my dog shit to class.
Right.
I was kind of like challenging and provoking a lot. And since he would take even the dog shit so seriously and talk about it and critique it, I really like, wow, this is the real shit, if we can invest time on this stuff, that was a real turn on. And then he started bringing things, mostly for me, because I was like really like out of place there. But he started bringing like what was going on in the West Coast. I was looking at things like what was going on in New York. Les Levine he brought Les Levine to campus. And Les Levine chose to be in the what it was like the broadcasting
Uh-huh.
area. Not he didn't want to be in the art building. He wanted to go there, and he was making this amazing video, and we were as students. We would go and like witness him making this video. So that was the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And then Robert Tilly told me at one point, like, you have to get out of here. The Art Institute, Howard Fried is starting a program. He just got some video equipment, and that was it. I sent for the catalog, and so did it come to me or I went to it? Both.
Yeah.
Via Robert, it came to me too. Like, it goes, go here and meet this guy, Howard Fried.
Awesome.
And I did. I packed my things. I got accepted, and like, go west, young man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. So now the second part of your question, I got there, and I think, even recently I was saying that, like, it was kind of like, Miami was going nowhere for me, and the exiled Cuban community was really not even conservative. It was like, censorship. Like,
yeah.
You there was no dialogue, no debate. I came when I was 15 in 66. So, it was kind of weird because the revolution did affect me, and with all its signifiers and symbols and ideas, I was very much influenced by it as a young boy,
Right.
and the whole revolutionary thing. And then when I get to San Francisco, I realized that it was like cool to be Cuban. They were Che Guevara, and
That's
stuff.
right.
Like that.
And what year was that?
I got there in 76.
76. Okay. Right.
76. I did my 2 years in the college, the junior college. So then I got my stuff transferred.
Right.
So I did 2 years, 76 to 78. And then I stayed in for my graduate, 78 to 80. So I got my MFA in 1980.
In 80, yeah.
But right. So, it was my early work. It was like, about the refugee part, one thing that I've said recently is that one thing about the Art Institute was that I realized everybody was a refugee, some form or another.
Yeah.
Everybody was running away from something. And it was this kind of like community of that I felt at home. I like found my voice, my tribe.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. So much from even the other students, being in classroom with Karen Finley and Bruce Pollack. And it was such a competitive thing, And then when I was there, again, you can interrupt me anytime if I'm going in circles.
No, that's okay.
It was, we were kind of like, on the parking lot, on the other side. Howard Fried fought so hard, and it was so much resistance when he wanted to get out of sculpture and have his own space and his own program.
Yeah.
And that I'd witnessed that. I was one of the first students into the performance video department,
right? Which
now it became new genres.
New genres, right? Yeah.
But we were kind of like, in many ways, like the joke. They don't make art over there. Oh, they just get naked. Oh, they just do subversive stuff. They don't make real art. And that was something that little by little was like you wore it on your sleeve. I would go like, well, if they're so concerned and involved about what we're doing, because I really don't care what they do in the other departments.
Yeah.
We must be doing something right.
That's awesome.
If we seem so threatening, to the whole status quo, and
that is interesting.
To the point that I was even banned from using the tools in the sculpture area because I was working with Howard. It was really very interesting time. Interesting time.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I was so focused when I was there in the painting department that I was somewhat oblivious to what else was going on, for better or for worse. And I think that that can happen. You just drill down into your own orbit. And
that's how it was. It was like silos, so you remember,
it's interesting. And I had heard a little bit about performance video while I was there, but I didn't know anybody that was involved in it. And like I said, I was just so focused on my own thing.
Well, yeah, no.
And so
I used to tell, people that it was kind of like Europe, it was like, like Italy speaks their own language, German has their own language, Spain has their own language. It was like, I felt like, and then I saw Studio 9 as the, what do you call the Statue of Liberty, where all the people running from ended up there, like, yeah, it was really, really amazing time. I think also was the times in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco alternative was the word.
Right.
I mean, and everything that was happening in the counterculture, in the music, even in theater, in the alternative spaces were popping up, artist run spaces. And that was like incredible. So we started, organizing our own shows and finding empty warehouses and storefronts. And that was, I think, as much as the school offered.
Yeah.
And also down the street, from down Columbus, we would go to Broadway and go to the Mabuhay, the punk club. So we had, that scene there, which I related so much more to the scene in the punk club that I did with the alternative spaces, because they were becoming established now.
Right.
Getting grants, getting money, it was kind of like, it was shifting and changing. And so that, I was very fortunate to have worked with, MoCA, the Museum of Conceptual Art, and Tom Marioni. I offered my services as a janitor, and Tom would give me the most bizarre assignments, like clean this sink. Everything was treated like in this Zen kind of ritual performance. And there I met Terry Fox. So, and then I got sent over to David Ireland, and he was starting to work on the house.
Yeah.
And I had the video equipment, and David wanted someone to document the process. So I always say that it was, Howard Fried, David Ireland's house, the Museum of Conceptual Art, and Mabuhay Gardens. It was like I had all of that in terms of my education and initiation.
Yeah.
I was lucky.
That's awesome.
Howard also was bringing, you name it. Marina Abramovic, Chris Burden, Barbara Smith, Linda Montano. He just brought any artist, William Wegman. So we also had an incredible access to what was happening in terms of, at the time, contemporary art.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, history. Performance and video didn't have any textbooks.
Yeah.
So in a way, Howard was creating his own, inventing his language for teaching. And we were forced to develop our own vocabulary. So what we were doing. And it was the best, because instead of, looking at reading, old dead artists, you could go down to Langton and Chris Burden do a performance, or Vito Acconci. You could see what was going on. Yep. So that was amazing.
That's great. I did have the good fortune to go on a field trip. I was in Jim Pomeroy's class.
Oh, it was amazing.
And that was probably the closest experience I had with what became new genres, I would say, in retrospect. And we visited David's house and met him and got the tour. And
beautiful.
And at the time, I was a pretty young guy, and it was just like I was just in awe of all of it. And but that was great. We did a number of things, when I think about it, in Jim Pomeroy's class that were very thought-provoking, and kind of opened things up.
And as you know, him and Jack Reynolds started, 80 Langton Street.
Right. Yeah, I had forgotten about that. But yeah,
he was. I mean, I took him too. I had classes with him. He was died too young.
Yeah, right.
What can I say? Died too young.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm really interested in that. How the performance art evolved, I suppose, into the new genres. I've met through the Alumni Association a number of people, and I asked them what their focus was at SFAI, and there were new genres. Seemed like a lot. So I'd be interested to hear how that kind of evolved into such a substantial component, almost like the really inhabited the spirit of SFAI, the new genres, in terms of opening up ideas.
Well, the evolution was that I think, got to the point that, okay, let me put it this way. Let me rewind a little bit. We used to have the National Endowment for the Arts. And, there were like, artists, would get grants, So that was what I think it was. We, in the performance video department, we weren't really, we knew that our path was not to the one-way street to the white cube commercial gallery. So because there were grants available, all of these alternative spaces were supporting that kind of work, installation, video, performance, conceptual art. It seemed like that would have been my future.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, Reaganomics came, the NEA was shut down, no more support. So a lot of conceptual artists and performance artists and all that, we kind of either start teaching so we can make a living, or what. So the good thing about that is that what it created, just like post World War II, an infiltration of this kind of avant-garde thinking into academia.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, no textbooks. It was like really all of a sudden you had Chris Burden teaching, Baldessari at CalArts, UCLA had an amazing program. All of a sudden, it was like these art departments were getting infiltrated by conceptual artists and performance and video artists. So it needed like support and facilities. And I think that's why Howard was very prophetic in getting 2 Portapax video cameras, in the early 70s. That was like really a vision of what was to come. So then I think what started to happen is like, then by then it was like the main players were Howard Fried, Paul Koss, and David Ross, which was then the director in Berkeley, the museum. And I think it was Paul Koss and Howard. I mean, we were all making objects also. And the contemporary art landscape was changing. And in the 80s, we had like, painting came back, objects came back, the appropriation, movement came in. So, like opened it up. And, before the NEA didn't have like a box for what we were doing.
Yeah.
It was just like, send what represents your work. That's about it. But then somewhere in the mid 80s, the little box new genres came.
Yeah.
And so then it was, I think, Paul Koss's idea that I think, we need, if our students are going to go in that direction and be, in need of grants and the NEA, let's change it and open it up. Also, because, like I said, our students were painting, our students were doing sculpture, our students were doing conceptual photography. So we need to, people like you said, had no idea, like, oh, they just do performance over there.
Yeah.
Instead of like realizing that even the faculty, their work, or Tom Marioni, Terry Fox, showed that we were making a lot of sculpture. We came out of the sculpture department.
Yeah.
To us, I mean, Bruce Nauman making videos, he related to them as sculpture in space and time. And so did Paul Koss. So I think, so it was kind of like the evolution was seeing what was happening with the NEA and what was happening with the climate at the time,
Right.
how this kind of work was beginning to be recognized and all that.
Yeah.
If we jump and keep jumping, today, I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, what gallery show or museum show do we see that they all have some sort of video in it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
They all have sort of performative thing in it,
Uh-huh.
be it mediated by the camera, the still photography, or mediated by video. Then installation came, then the projectors came, and it was kind of like now, as one critic said about what I was doing, like they're just doing cinema without seats.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like it was. So anyway, it's kind of like it's just my students can see it. When they go to shows and museums and galleries, they can see that video and all that had become right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was, in a nutshell, the evolution of the program.
Uh-huh.
And then when I became chair of the new genres department, it was kind of like the people that I was bringing, because Doug Hall and Paul Koss were retiring. Howard had retired a few years before. I needed new blood, and what that new generation was doing was, Jennifer Locke, Tim Sullivan, you name it, Chris Solaris. It was all like Matt Slinnerup. It was kind of like really all based in their training, their foundation, and that kind of conceptual new genres kind of way of working.
Mm-hmm.
So then, we started doing classes where, like, I remember in the 90s, I had a lot of filmmakers in my class.
Right.
I had a lot of photographers in my class, because in those other departments, they were just talking craft.
Yeah. Right.
And, technical things and craft issues, but no one was really talking about, why are you doing this? Why is it a painting and not this? Why is it this? What are you doing? Like, and, I did a class called Photo Works, and it was not about dark room. I didn't even care if you got it like developed at Walgreens.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to see the ideas behind it, So
Right.
I think that's what started to get the word out. Film was really still like, they weren't welcoming narrative works, so they would come over, so that's still happening today.
Uh-huh.
We get a lot of, because it's all the camera, it's all the mediation of through a lens.
Right.
So that really was, we started expanding.
Yeah.
I think anyway, was the nature of being on the parking lot, like I said, like outside of the main building, out away from all the administration and the offices. It really was really a lot easier to like feel like a clique.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you didn't hear about what we were doing over there, because it was kind of like, we didn't care about the main building, and we were just, taking the break, smoking the cigarettes, outside in the parking lot and going back into class. So it was, on the idea of an empty room. Just chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Like people, there were no tools there, no facilities, and it was not an looking over the shoulder kind of teaching, because it wasn't even teaching. It was sharing and challenging each other, even the teachers. So I think that was what separated us from the rest. That they knew that it was a place to talk about content and intentions and what you were trying to do, and if you were doing it or not, and very formal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the students really needed and wanted that kind of counter thing. Once they knew how to like print a photo, what other dialogue are they getting? So they would come over to get a different kind of dialogue.
That's interesting. That is so fascinating. I think as I think back on it, it occurs to me that the concepts were expanding, like what you were saying, a room full of chairs, and it kind of brings you into a space of your own consciousness, your own presence, and it's more about that and your own experience with your consciousness than making a painting, for example. Not that making a painting because I'm a painter and I'm very aware of my consciousness and in my artwork, but there's something about that wide open space where you're including filmmaking and sculpture and performance all in the same, because I feel like now in my life I can really appreciate that more so than back then.
We've always talked about, like, and especially when I started teaching, is like trying to go for a common language.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that common language is about just being artists in the room, regardless of what your mediums are, your materials are.
Yeah.
I think we all, and then because it wasn't for me, maybe I'm wrong, but it wasn't a solitary activity.
I was just thinking that, the idea of
the studio painters are in their studio by themselves,
right.
where like, the social was such a strong component in teaching and sharing and challenging each other. So it was, the assignments they were so open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
And after one semester, if you did NG1, that's it. No more assignments. You were like literally on your own.
Wow.
So it was no hiding behind, use burlap and plaster and do this. So everybody's using the same thing.
Yeah.
Here is like, no matter what the assignment was, do whatever, self-portrait.
Yeah.
Some could bring a video, others brought a painting, others brought an installation, others, you know what I mean? And that common language is what the philosophy was.
Yeah. It seems to me that the idea of collaboration would be much more open than when you're working in your studio, on your
Absolutely.
painting so the students would probably be more open to working together and sharing their ideas.
Absolutely. It was kind of like that, there was no way that you could be a poser in the performance video.
Uh-huh.
If you wanted to be cool, you had to work.
Yeah.
You had to show stuff, and
right.
It didn't matter. Like, even failures were welcomed.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, they were encouraged.
Yeah. Right.
To take risks, to step outside of what was familiar,
mm-hmm.
to try something different, And I think that's what really was, an amazing foundation for all of us, because again, it was very competitive.
Competitive in a good way. I know competitive competition in every way.
Necessary way, because see, that word has a stigma or something.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it was, I would see Karen Finley do a piece, and it was like, oh yeah, I'll do mine next week.
Right.
We were inspiring and challenging. Yeah. That's what I mean about competitive.
Yeah.
You had to like make a fool of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You had to take risks. You had to, be there in the moment and do it,
Right. Yeah. It seems that would be pretty liberating on the one hand, knowing that you just had to show up, but everything was okay. You weren't going to get judged in the usual kind of way.
Right.
So as long as you're present, showing up and participating. So I think that's great. Yeah. So in terms of like over the years up to the present, how would you say that the program has changed, or do you think the spirit of it is still similar or different with the students? Fortunately, there are some students there now. I'm glad to hear. But
no, but I would even talk to you about before the pandemic and before what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, changing. Yeah. If you're not ready for change, then you really become a dinosaur.
Yeah.
We can't be stuck in the 70s and what I experienced and expect that in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So, or you shouldn't.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you see so many professors like just becoming, like they don't have anything to contribute anymore because they're so stuck in their ways.
Right.
And not for us, not for new genres. I mean, things did, of course, change. I'll tell you what some of the changes were. The school changed. We didn't. And the school became more and more limiting what we were all about. So we had to really go against the tide of like administration taking over, micromanaging everything, becoming more and more like a university system than an art school. That's the reality that I've said it. I'll say it forever.
Yeah.
The 90s brought the multicultural wave to it, which was bringing different voices, and which identity followed that, and representation of people of color, rather than just Western white European influences in the teaching and the history classes. Carlos Villa was doing amazing stuff,
Right. Yep.
So then, the 90s were difficult, and I would get into a lot of trouble, in the dean's office every month, because I think performance was starting to be perceived as like a dangerous thing that could cause a lot of liability. So that really came to the point that, we stopped doing performance classes for a while in the 90s because it just wasn't worth it. And I think the students also had like a misinterpretation of the romantic images from the 70s and all that. The students started getting younger and younger and younger. I mean, when I went to the Art Institute, you wouldn't get in from high school. You needed what they call a 2-year life experience, or go to a college and transfer like I did.
Right.
And they started getting younger and younger, financial reasons. And towards the end, I'll be honest with you, Thomas, I just wanted to do graduate classes. Because I just felt like I was in high school, and then the cell phone came in.
Man.
Their attention span, there's a lot of cultural issues that affected what we did because, like I said, an empty room with chairs means we're going to talk a lot.
Yeah.
Going to be a lot of dialogue here, and you better participate. And they, the younger they got, the more they really didn't want that at all.
Right.
They just wanted to go play with their clay and have a teacher walk by and go, "You're doing good," or walk by and say, "Make it bigger."
Yeah.
And, you could see the faculty in the cafe having coffee.
Interesting.
We were talking and looking for 3 hours nonstop. So that it was the culture and the Art Institute that changed, that became very more and more difficult. And then me moving, the Doug Hall retiring, Paul Koss retiring, me moving to being director of the graduate program. Basically, there was it became almost like New Genres was the place to have fun. I hate to say it. It was like where you went and you could get by and you can have fun and and it was like wah for me. I just
oh man.
At the end it was very difficult, Thomas. Very difficult. So it took me a while to let go. Because at the beginning I was so invested that I would even would get sad, what's going on with the New Genres department? I don't recognize it anymore. It's not doesn't have a rigor like we used to have, and then I just had to let it go and concentrate on the graduate program. And I think I was very successful in creating an atmosphere that was basically new genres.
Mhm.
It became interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
No more majors. Students were like starting. They would come in as painters, and little by little, they would make in a video or an
Yeah.
installation, and vice versa.
That's
So I find my satisfaction and more in the graduate program. The undergraduate was just an extension of high school.
Oh, wow.
Too
Interesting.
much babysitting, and I couldn't take it.
Yeah. Interesting. I do remember a little bit of that from when I was there. It seemed like there was a push to get younger people in.
Whoa.
And
anybody through the door,
it was yeah. So that was interesting when I think about it. But like I said, I was very serious. I could have lightened up a little bit and had I could have done a little more partying and it wouldn't have killed me. You know what I mean? But but I was just I was head down in the turpentine. And
were you like, what age were you?
I was 20. I was 24.
Okay, well, you were ready.
Yeah.
You were ready.
Exactly.
I mean, when I went to the Art Institute, I was 25.
Yeah, and I had been to junior college, and so I had got all my basic stuff out. So it was strictly studio.
So images that come right from high school. What kind of art education do they get in high school?
Man.
What kind of life lessons do they get in high school? Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like, when I went to recruiting towards the end, I would portfolio reviews. And I found myself talking to the parents, and the potential student was there, like quiet, just looking at me. And who I wanted to talk to was the kid. Like, what do you do? What do you like? What are you interested in?
Right.
But the parents were interested in, like, what kind of dorms? Is it safe? I'm like, we're not selling like the faculty and the work and the community anymore. We're selling like we can't compete with that.
No.
We have dorms in the Tenderloin. Good luck.
Exactly. That's right. It's like, I think you might have picked the wrong school here. It's like,
so all of those things were very complicated, but they were the reality.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. That's awesome. Well, I think there's just so much to talk about all of that, and but I did want to talk about the Three Turns, the Miami Beach Untitled program that's going on tomorrow. That you're the participating, the juror. I have a couple friends that are actually in that.
Oh, cool!
It sounds awesome.
It's going to be, I think so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
it's going to be great. The only thing that I say fingers crossed, not because of it's an amazing selection, but is like getting the truck, like the truck works, like, that's where the fingers crossed come in, not on anything else,
Right. Yeah. I was on a Zoom call with Maria, my friend Maria, who I know you know, and the other day, and the big event was going to be getting the truck and having that work out. So that's awesome.
Very excited about that.
Yeah.
For people that are listening to the truck, like, what truck? It's a billboard video truck that's going to be right on the sand at the entrance to Untitled Fair. And so what I was really attracted to was that, and we can raise it like 20 feet in the air. So what I just really, like, in my work and my interest, I was interested in being inside and outside, like, not just the art audience, but like people on the beach playing volleyball could have access to it as well. Kind of like, breaking down the elite versus the outside. And so that really interested me when we started talking about the idea. I said, well, let's do a video show outside. Let's project it like drive-in,
Yeah.
and that would lead to, the truck came in, and so that's what it's going to be. I selected 4 artists, and then Maria did an open call, as you know it,
Yeah.
for others to respond, like pick any of the artists and or works and respond to them, and then we got like all the videos, and then I selected that to make, considering the limitations, like, if there were narrative works where that's not going to work. It was nothing against the work. It was more about people are going to be walking by. It's not something to sit down and watch. So I had to take all those things in consideration to put more of a poetic, visually, like filled with like maybe visual metaphors and things relate to. I live here now, and, really affected by, the issues of the sea level rising, and the ocean, and the amount of, under the name of progress, the amount of like developing and developing. They keep building, condos that go all the way to the sky,
Right.
And so there's this kind of like issue that, by being here, of course, it affected me. When I was in San Francisco, it was the drought and the fires.
Sure. Yep.
You know what I mean? It's
man.
Like all of these things, are like really affecting us as humans, as citizens, So it's not about activism or anything like that. It's just that we're affected by it.
Sure. Absolutely.
We respond. So that's how the sort of like this project came about. And, Maria, they approached me when I moved here, and I'm, still in the process of getting to, check out the art scene here, and its politics and who's who and all of that,
Right.
And so when Maria invited me to do something, and it was a pleasure.
That's great.
Yeah. Immediately I said, yeah, let's do it. Sounds like fun,
That's awesome. And then there's COVID, of course, and that has certainly had effect, especially in Florida, from what I've heard.
How so?
Oh, just in terms of
like, what have you heard? Because I'm really interested.
Yeah, that's a thing. Just in terms of
Florida seems to be the target of like, you guys are so fucked up over there.
Well, maybe, yeah, and the media is a thing too. It just seems like, from what we hear out here on the West Coast, that things are kind of the Wild West in Florida in terms of like people wearing masks as being vaccinated. So maybe that's the media more than the reality. I'm not sure.
Well, I'll tell you something. Like, I'm sure you're very aware of it. Whether it's, my wife teaches at UW in Seattle. So I spent a lot of time in Seattle the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, you talk about California, and you and I know that Orange County is not San Francisco.
Yeah.
We know that Central California is not LA.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they generalize and stereotype Florida because Trump lives here and because DeSantis is an asshole governor, But, that's why I said I am not in Miami. And if people know what South Beach is, they would understand, This is a little island.
Yeah.
This is like, I hardly even drive a car here. I'm like, either walking or in my bicycle constantly. Yeah. I'm 4 blocks from the beach.
That's awesome.
So during the whole pandemic, it was a saving grace because at least I had the outdoors.
Yeah.
At least I could go and walk and go to the beach. And, in San Francisco, I was going nuts in the lockdown.
Oh, man. Right.
And, and the weather was, come on, I'm Cuban,
Yeah.
For a while, San Francisco, I couldn't take anymore. So it's this is just a little island. It's island living, here. And also, once you go north, like, after South Beach, and then you start going after 20th Street or so north. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
There are no condos here. It's just, it's really, really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
That
area.
sounds great.
It's just, I mean, when people go to Miami, I go, I'm not in Miami.
Not in Miami. Yeah. No, that sounds awesome. It's
like everything.
Yeah, that's great. We love to go to Hawaii. That's our happy place. So I've never been to Florida, but someday I would like to come and and see what
it's just like, what I mean. It's the same thing. It's like Orlando is Orlando, Tampa is Tampa, up in Gainesville and Tallahassee. I mean, come on, that's the South over there. They're right next door to Georgia and whatever,
Right.
So it's kind of like it's just lumping everything in Miami. There's all the Cubans and Latin America, and my neighborhood is filled with Jamaicans and Haiti. So there's like I hear all kinds of languages here. This is very, very. So it's not the stereotype.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me ask you kind of. Go back a little bit. And now that you're retired, and not just because you're retired, like what does that even mean? But
well, Thomas, I'm not retired.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm not retired.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm online.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna ask, what kinds of things do you do to keep yourself inspired, like meditation or some sort of physical activity, or is it just your life in general that keeps you going? But is there something that you, in terms of a practice like writing or meditating or something like that that keeps you connected?
I think what like everything that's around me, including life, including politics, including popular culture, including the media. I watch a lot of TV. The environment, the climate, climate in the political climate in the environmental climate, climate and all that. More and more like weather, climate has been influencing me a lot.
Yeah.
And but I think growing up with the revolution, I've been very political all my life. So I don't know if it inspires me or it makes me react.
Yeah.
Or act upon something, or the futility and the feeling incompetent that there's not really much we can do to change the things that we would like better. So at least we try to drop a drop in the bucket, through expressing ourselves, and that's all I can do. I mean, I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, I've been drawing a lot, and it's been like my main activity. Maybe isolation, lockdown had a lot to do with it. Like, just do something.
Right.
Make sure you do something, whatever that is.
Yep.
I think after working for so long with commissions and proposals and installations and site-specific fabrications, it was really deadlines. It was really the last 2 years have been an amazing thing that I really took advantage of, not having deadlines, not having like shows coming up. It freed me from. So it was just kind of like I didn't have to judge what the output was. And drawing was practical, because I didn't need I could do it on a kitchen table. I could do it, on just a table, and paper and materials, and it's such a basic universal activity, drawing, no matter whether it's, sketching out ideas or representational kind of drawings or abstract drawings or markings.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I've been doing quite a bit. So it has surprised me, I
Yeah.
got the bug to just make drawings and drawings and drawings. So they're happening,
That's great. That's great. That's what I was thinking, like playing music or cooking or things like
Cooking.
that.
Cooking is big.
That's great. Well, here's a question for you. What we've been rolling around an idea of putting together an SFAI cookbook of students and faculty's favorite recipes. And
Wonderful.
Is there anything that comes to your mind that you might consider to be, a favorite recipe or dish that you like to make?
My signature dish?
Maybe, yeah. What's Tony Labat's signature dish? Here we are on Chopped, right?
Oxtail.
Oxtail. Wow. Okay. And how
Thomas, listen, since we're on that subject, and I never answered you. You were saying something about me teaching, right? How it all started and all that. Well,
yeah.
I graduated in 80, and in 1982, Howard gets a hold of me, contacts me, and says that he was doing a class called Physical Education. And he was going to break it up into like 2 weeks. So a number of artists would come in as visiting artists and take 2 weeks. And he gave me principles of Latin cuisine.
Okay.
And he also gave me Sex for the Modern Mind.
Wow.
That one was tough.
Okay.
But he furnished Studio 9 like with a full working operating kitchen.
Wow.
And I spent 2 weeks cooking with the students and all that. Then last year, before the pandemic, my last class, undergraduate, but it was undergraduate and graduates could take it, was a cooking class.
Awesome.
And
wow.
we spent the whole semester cooking. And the conversation around, what food and the whole social ritual of it. And I think the cultural came out because my room was filled with international students.
Yeah.
So, the Chinese started talking about their culture, what they eat, and on and on and on. The Mexican, Brazil I had in the class. It was fantastic. So we all cooked. I used my budget to bring all the equipment that we needed.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. So it's in me.
That was in Studio 9, did you say?
Yeah.
And where is that now? Because I visit the school fairly
same place.
Same place.
Same place. What is the parking lot on the back on Jones?
Yeah, right.
There's the parking lot by the photo.
Okay, yeah.
There's the parking lot that, you can see the big roll-up doors of sculpture. That parking lot. At the end, you'll see Studio 10, and behind Studio 10 is Studio 9.
Awesome. Wow. That's great. Huh. Well, that sounds great. Yeah, a cooking class.
I'll be happy to give you my oxtail recipe.
Oh, wow. That's great. That sounds good. I think that would be really interesting to collect people's favorite recipes, because there's so much about cooking and food that is personal and cultural and creative.
Well, it's like I'm sure you're the same. It's just like making art.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're cooking, it's like, especially if you're cooking without a recipe.
Yeah.
You just get your ingredients and figure it out. Yeah, I'm definitely hooked on all those cooking shows.
What's your favorite cooking show, or do you have a favorite cooking show?
I like them all. I mean, I don't like the baking things because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But Beat Bobby Flay, Chopped, all of those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great.
The grocery games.
Yeah, right. Guys,
games. That one is a really good one too.
That's awesome. From Santa Rosa, California is where he lives, I do believe. That's where his place is.
That's right.
That's funny. Oh man. Well, this has been great. I think we're about out of time, but if there's anything more you would like to add, anything at all, I just really appreciate your participation in this. And
not really, just be well and keep working.
absolutely.
And you know what I mean? That's about it. That's all we can do right now.
Yeah, it's been great.
We're not going back to anything normalcy. We're going to a different new normal, and we don't know what that's going to be like. So
right,
let's just keep making art.
Keep making art. That's exactly right. Well, I hope our paths cross someday. And but this has been great, meeting you online here, and I just greatly appreciate it. And I hope tomorrow is a huge success with 3 turns out there. And it sounds awesome.
Hear about it. I'm sure you will hear about it.
Yeah. I've got a few friends that have videos. Tobin, I believe, and Beth Waldman. I believe she has a video as well. So I look forward.
Just had dinner last night.
That's great. What did you have?
We went to a Cuban restaurant, of course.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh man, that sounds good. All right, Tony. Well, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And we'll be in touch. And like I said, I hope to cross paths in the other real world at some point in the future.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Okay. Bye. You've been listening to Speaking of Art School, an oral history project created to perpetuate the culture and legacy of the San Francisco Art Institute. I'm your host, Thomas M. Houston. If you're an alumni of SFAI and would like to participate in this project, please contact me at thomasmhoustonartist@gmail.com. Please stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and as always, thanks for listening.